Hi, I'm photographer David Flores, and welcome to the B&H Photo live stream discussion of travel and lifestyle photography featuring the Sony A7 Mark III. Now, we have a fantastic panel of guests that are with us today that are experts in the field and wonderful on social media. We're going to be hearing from them in just a second. But before we get going, just want to hear a little bit about you all. Maybe we can start with you, Paola, and work our way down the line.
Sure. Thank you so much for having us. We're happy to be here today. My name is Paola Frankie, also known as Monaris on social media. I'm part of the Sony Alpha Collective. I have been shooting for the past 6 years. I do mostly street photography and visual storytelling. And I just love to travel the world and document life. It's an amazing life.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Brett, how you doing, man?
What's up? Thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Brett Conti. I am from New York City, and I am a content creator. I mostly do video. I also do stills as well, but my concentration is on YouTube. And yeah, I am doing my childhood dream of getting paid to travel the world, and I'm very happy to be here to talk about it.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Now, Rachel, you've been in New York for less than 24 hours.
Yeah, I just flew in from Hawaii. So my name is Rachel Jones-Ross. I'm a photography educator and a member of Sony Alpha's Imaging Collective. I'm based out of the Rocky Mountains near Banff and Lake Louise in Alberta, and I teach photography all over the world.
Awesome to have you here.
Thank you.
Garrett, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Thanks for having me. My name is Garrett King, and also known as Short Stash. I'm from Emerald, Texas, but I live in Seattle, Washington now, sometimes when I'm not traveling. I am a storyteller and content creator. More like adventure lifestyle-ish, I guess.
Well, it's good to have you here, man.
Thanks, man.
This is cool. Now, before we get going, a few things. We're giving away some fun stuff. Over the weekend, we had our social media team push out a query for folks that are shooting with the A7 III to send in their best shot. Now, at the end of the live stream, we're going to be giving away 4 $500 B&H gift cards, so definitely stay tuned for that. Also, we have a grand prize. And to enter in this grand prize contest, all you have to do is tweet questions at us. So if there's a question that you have about travel and lifestyle photography, maybe about the Sony system, any imaging in general, send that question to us over Twitter with the hashtag BHPhotoLive. That's BHPhotoLive, and you'll automatically be entered into our drawing to win a brand new Sony A7 III with a 28 to 70 millimeter lens. Sounds awesome.
Yeah, can you enter that?
I don't know. I don't know if we can pull that one off. That'd be pretty cool. Well, I think the question that I want to get started with is what did you fall in love with first? Was it travel or was it photography? And maybe Rachel, we can start with you on this. What got you first?
So I've always loved traveling, and I've always had a camera in my hand, but I really fell in love with photography the very first time that I ever took a night photo. So it was in the middle of winter. It was the tail end of the Milky Way, not even the core visible. But when I saw that image on the back of my LCD screen, I just fell in love. It was like somebody had pulled back a curtain and I was peering into the universe. And so that's when my journey with photography began.
Oh, man. What about you, Karen?
Started with my iPhone. I think it was photography first before traveling, because I wasn't really traveling at the time. But I'd say, I think 3 years ago or so, I started just shooting with my phone and traveling with that. And it was so nice to just have that in my pocket and not have all this camera gear. Mm-hmm. So those were the good old days. It was simpler. But I think it was just being able to go anywhere I wanted and just have that same device everybody else has, and that I could shoot with nonstop and just learn the basics just on my phone. So it started there for me, and then eventually worked my way up.
Cool. Brett, what about you?
Yeah.
Travel or photography? What was the first
It was
one?
definitely travel. I was about to go on my first big trip to 12 Asia, I was going through Southeast Asia and all throughout Asia. And I was like, I need to get a camera for this and make some YouTube videos, take some photos for my mom and my parents to see. And I posted them on YouTube and Instagram, and that started gaining some traction where people outside of my family actually wanted to see this stuff. So I was like, this was such a great investment, and now I've upgraded from the RX100, which was my first camera, and now have like the whole audio system and everything, and now producing content for brands, and it's been a dream come true.
That's awesome. How about you, Paula?
To me, it was photography first. When I first started on Instagram, I used to be iPhone only, like Garrett. But I got to a point in my life where I needed more, and I knew that if I wanted to travel, I needed to get my camera and stuff. So then I started seeing Instagrammers like traveling and taking photos, and I was like, what is that? I want that life. So that's when my journey started, and I started to like grow, and I started to learn new things, and when I wanted to get better because I wanted to travel and document life. So now I'm happy to say that that I've been able to fulfill that dream, and I'm living the dream pretty much.
Awesome. Well, it is that amazing intersection, photography and travel that we're talking about today. But a lot of our conversation is going to center around Sony's A7 Mark III. Now, I got a chance a few months ago to get my hands on the camera and to really put it through its paces. I enjoyed that very, very much. It's a very interesting camera. It seems to inherit like a lot of the DNA of the A7R III and the A9. So there's incredible battery life, great low light performance, awesome autofocus system. You're sitting at around 24.2 megapixels on the sensor with 693 phase detection autofocus points. It's also fast. You can shoot up to 10 frames per second. Has a full suite of video options on there. So even though it's what Sony is calling their entry-level or basic full-frame camera, there's a ton of awesome stuff that's on this. So everyone here, I think it's important to note that any of the images that you see on the live stream today are made with the A7 III. And if you have questions about it, ping them at us. Use the hashtag BHPhotoLive, and we'll do our best to get those answered for you here on the live stream. Okay, so so many of the questions that we have coming in around travel are about preparedness. So I want to start with a question that came in from Twitter. And the question asks, how important, and do you have any tips, is it to do research or create some type of editorial guide before traveling? Does this help with travel photography, or does it complicate more than it solves problems? Is it better to plan ahead or just to improvise? Brett, maybe we'll start with you here on this. Do you plan, or do you just kind of feel it out as you go?
I personally do not plan. I have one destination, and then I try and find as many things as possible along that way. And especially with I do when I'm focusing mostly on video and creating a story, you never know what's going to happen, where you could sometimes meet someone and then they want to show you this secret spot, or meeting locals. So I usually have one destination in my head, but you never know where the day can go, and you just got to go with the flow.
That's cool. Now, Rachel, obviously, I'm assuming a lot of planning is.
I'm a hardcore planner, yeah. But I have plans, and then I have backup plans, and then I have backup plans for my backup plans. I really do need to plan, because for night sky photography, for example, you need to be able to know where the Milky Way is going to be at what time, and if you're on a beach, then you need to know what the tide levels are going to be. So there's some planning that has to go into it.
Nice. What about you, Paula?
To me, it's mostly planning. Because of street photography, that's the type of work that I do. You have to be aware of your limitations and the laws of each country that you visit. So I always take my time, and I read a lot, and I study each country that I go to, and that's how I usually do it. And then when I get to the country, I know what I'm expecting, what I'm allowed to do, and what I can do, what I can photograph.
Do you have any tips for anybody? Let's say you do the research, you're figuring out laws, you're figuring out where you can be and where you can't be. But what about cultural things that come up, particularly in street photography, things like language or just general vibe? Any tips for folks that might be?
I think you just have to wait until you're there to experience what each country is like. You never know until you get there. Then you start experiencing the culture, the people, and then you get more familiarized with the place that you're in. So you have to wait till you're there to know. And it starts growing. It's like a beautiful thing that you start learning about other cultures, and that's one of my favorite things about traveling, just culture and people.
I love that. Now, Garrett, you're producing stuff for yourself, but you're also making a ton of stuff for clients. Mm-hmm. How does preparedness and improvisation work for your style of travel and lifestyle?
Sure. Yeah, it's super important. I'm a huge planner as far as how much get best bang for your buck type deal. And so when we're traveling with them groups or whoever it is, we try to line out day by day what it's going to look like from sun up to sundown. How long does it take to get there? By hours, have mileage, things like that. Does the place photograph well at sunset, sunrise? Can we just shoot there during the day with harsh light, or do we need specific light? Stuff like that. But in that moment, it's always good to remind yourself that you're going to have to freestyle no matter what. Because a lot of things, there might not be a sunrise or sunset. So you just got to be able to adapt and shoot really anywhere. And to me, you're only a good photographer if you can be experienced in all those realms. Like anybody can take a great photo in perfect light, but when you're challenged in those certain ways and all that planning's come ahead and you're able to just kind of bounce around and adapt, I think that makes you a threat. You're able to really adapt in those places. So planning's huge for me. And then, of course, being in the moment is super important too. If something comes up that's changed plans, it's great to go with the flow. I mean, there's just no other way to do it.
Well, I think the challenges are some of the things that we enjoy most about image making. And, I have some questions for you all about that. Now, Brett, let's start with you on this one. You shoot a good deal of photographic content, but you also produce a lot of moving image content for YouTube. How do you consider those things at the same time? Do you frame them differently? How do you think through that challenge of moving image and still?
Yeah, so a lot of my recent travels from the past year have been for mostly YouTube film content. But while I'm going to, get those shots, I'm usually thinking, all right, wait, I need to get some photos as well. So it's usually I get the moving images, and then I'm like, ooh, this could be a good angle for a still shot. So first film, and then that gives me my eye for the photo.
Nice. Now, you had the A7 III recently here in New York City?
I did.
What'd you shoot with it? What'd you do?
So I had it not for too long. I had one day where I could go out shooting with it. It was unfortunately not the nicest day out, but that's, how we were talking about, you have to go with the flow.
Sure.
Still made it work. And yeah, I got to shoot a really cool video. I think we have it here.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Let's watch it. Hi guys, my name is Brett Conti, and today we are shooting with the Sony A7 III here in New York City.
That was great.
I kind of want some more ice cream right now, actually.
We'll go for some after this.
Yes.
I have a question that there's a growing number of folks that are coming to B&H that are interested in becoming YouTubers, that are interested in becoming vloggers. With the piece that you just put out, do you preconceive your shots or your transitions, or is it more organic in the space? How do you do it?
Yeah, it's usually just goes with the day. So I had an idea of where I wanted to shoot, but then the transitions just came on base where I was like, ooh, this could be something cool that I can mask a transition, or I can do a cool zoom out effect here. So you always have to be on your toes, I guess, is my best advice for someone who wants to be a YouTuber or someone who wants to create content where they have to flip it fast, since I'm making at least 2 videos a week that I post. So always when I'm out, I don't get to really plan it. It's this could be cool. I got to go with it and not think too much.
That's awesome. Now, Paola, you're known so much for your street photography, and I've seen your wonderful work from Cuba and from Puerto Rico. Is there a general approach that you recommend to folks if they're trying street for the first time or travel photography for the first time?
I always say to people, take their time. I feel like you can read and study street photography, but you have to go out and learn for yourself. What works for others might not work for yourself. That's my number one advice. Go out, try it. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll become. You start seeing the world differently. You start to appreciate the little things in life, and that's what I do. Every time I'm out walking the streets, I'm just seeing, there's stories happening all the time. And then it's I want to tell them. So that's why I want to capture as much as possible to tell those people the stories. So just take your time, go out there, practice. If you don't like it one day, maybe tomorrow you'll like it, but don't give up. It takes time, especially if you're afraid. That's the number one thing. People are worried that, they're going to get hit or so, somebody's going to say something. It's part of it. It's it's part of the journey of street photography.
What do you do in that situation? If you confront somebody that maybe doesn't want their photograph made?
I apologize, and I make sure that they see that I deleted their photo, and I just smile, and I just walk away, respectfully.
Why is that so important?
Because they have to know that their rights matter. Even though I have the camera, they're still in control of the situation. So you always have to be respectful of their wishes.
I love that. I love that a lot. Now, Rachel, you shoot fantastical things in nature.
you.
How do you begin to take that on? How do you begin to prepare for a challenge like that? You were just in Hawaii over volcanoes, like
Yeah.
working around.
So if I was to give somebody advice for doing what I typically do, a lot of my students show up with a tripod and they'll put the tripod down and then they'll try to line up a shot. It's so much more efficient if you just handheld take some shots and get some ideas for composition. Take 20 shots first before you take one, and then set up on a tripod and then, you know, shoot for the light. Preparing for Hawaii was a little bit of a challenge, just because there was a lot of stuff there that was out of my typical realm. I mean, I was shooting from a helicopter and from a boat and, you know, moving platforms, fast shutters, no tripod. So, you know, a lot of it was a different style of shooting for me, but still, the same subject. So Hawaii was an awesome challenge. And it was a great little test of the A7 III as well, because I was shooting in so many different types of environments.
Now, there's places, I'm assuming this, but there's probably places you can go and places where you can't go.
Oh, yeah.
How do you negotiate that as an image maker?
I asked a lot of questions. There's a lot of culturally sensitive areas that are off limits in Hawaii, so I just asked questions. Am I allowed to be there? You know, is there rules about me being there? Is there rules about the photography from there? And there was lots of places that I wanted to take photographs from that were off limits to me, and you just respect that. And there's so many other places that I could go. So
that's awesome. That's cool. Now, Garrett, I'm assuming you probably have to ask a lot of questions up front, like if you're working with a client on what it is that you want to make. What's that process like for you?
I would think just transparency. You want to have the same goal in mind as far as satisfaction, and like everybody wants to meet at the end of something great. And if you're telling a story, I think it's just clear outlines of like what your ideas are, and hey, are there any like boundaries or anything else like in mind that you think I should stay within, or is it just like total creative freedom and just gonna let me do my thing? So I think it's just questions. Like I'm never afraid to ask questions over and over just to make sure and cross it out. So that way, at the end, the worst case scenario would be like, oh, we thought you were going to do this. Or, oh, we thought like you would just do this type of thing. And that's never been the case, 'cause that's like the worst. That's like the worst feeling, is if you feel like you would let someone down. So I just always ask as many questions as I can.
Do you prefer to work within limitations, or do you enjoy engaging like in a more open concept type of project?
I think it's like a little bit of give and take. I don't mind limitations, because that's just, a lot of products are limitations. You get these like parameters that you're stuck in. It's like, how creative can I be in this environment with this product? And I want to take the focus from the actual product and have everybody engage with what's happening. So no matter what the product is, I think people can be immersed in like what your creative idea is. And to me, that's successful in storytelling. So I think it just kind of goes hand in hand. It's good to be challenged, and it also gives you some type of guidance in a certain direction, because when you have total freedom, sometimes it's hard to narrow down which idea you want to go with, because it's just all over the place.
Yeah. Well, we got asked this question. I know B&H gets asked this question a lot. So this comes in from social. What type of photographers is the A7 III designed for? And I think this is an interesting question, because we have so many different photographers here on panel today. You all use the camera differently, or maybe use the features a little bit differently. Paula, maybe we can start with you.
Can we say everyone? I mean,
I think you could say
like,
that.
why not? I mean, if you're thinking to buy your first camera, that would be ideal. I get this question asked a lot. What camera would you recommend? And the A7 III is actually my first choice right now. I always tell them, if it's not expensive. If you are in a budget, that's your go-to camera, because I truly believe it's a great camera, and everyone should have it.
Now, there's some features maybe that jump out for you, Brett. You're obviously more on the moving image end of things, but are things that you like there about it for a videographer?
Yeah, like as you guys saw in my video, I really loved how I could shoot the 120. That's my favorite thing, especially since I like doing a lot of adventure, action, sports stuff. It was so cool to capture some skateboarding shots or anything that would look beautiful in some 120 frames per second. That's crucial. And I also want to include that I usually shoot with the A6500. That's my day-to-day camera, nice and compact. But with the A7 III, it was nice just being my first full-frame camera. It was so ideal and so user-friendly. So I'd recommend anyone who wants their first full-frame, like big boy camera, this is a good one for that.
So has everyone here shot with APS-C cameras, I'm assuming, before, and then in full frame. Rachel, maybe you can start with this one. What's the step up, or what's the difference, like when you're going from APS-C to full frame? Why do something like that?
Well, for me as a landscape photographer, you just get so much more of the scene. Like, I'm able to just capture so much more with a full frame and a wide angle lens. So that was the biggest difference for me. But my regular camera is the A7R III, and the resolution on that thing is just insane. So, if you really love what you capture in the field, then you can go home and print that as big as you want. So
Garrett, for full frame for you, producing stuff for a client,
Sure.
why do you prefer that, or why do you use that versus, say, an APS-C camera? Or maybe you use both, I'm not sure.
So I started out on a APS-C camera, and to me it didn't matter because it was just kind of mind over matter. It wasn't about the gear that you have, and it still isn't to me. It's it's the person behind it. But once you start running into technical limitations, you're like, okay, I need to bump up. You do pay attention to detail and how much you can encompass it into every photo and things like that. So I would say detail's huge for me, because those certain areas lack on a crop sensor. So, but if you're just starting out, I think it's totally fine for people that want to get into it. You don't have to have some specific thing to start. It's just, I started with my phone. So I went from my phone to full frame, and it's just been nice to, work my way up and progress. So I think that's just super important.
That's cool. Well, we have another gear-oriented question that's coming through the internets here at us. When traveling, do you prefer carrying a bag full of different lens choices, or one walkabout lens attached to the body, and that's it? If it's a bag, what's in it? And maybe we can start with you, Rachel.
So that's a great question. I mean, preferably I'd like to travel with something super light, because I do a lot of hiking, and luckily Sony cameras are very light. But I also love gear, and I love lens choice. And when I was in Hawaii, I was shooting with 2 cameras at a time, and I had different lenses mounted on each one so that I could get wide, I could get tight. I really like having that versatility. So in my bag, I had everything from the 12 to 24, 24 to 70, 70 to 200, 100 to 400, and a 1.4 converter, and then a whole bunch of primes and other choices in between. So
and your sticks and all that.
Yeah, I had a full kit, and I was also using the RX0. So it was a lot of gear.
But you like having that
I like
to have
having
the option
it.
to shoot
because sometimes you're going into a situation you don't know what to expect. There was a lot of restrictions around the lava flow, and I really wasn't sure if I could get the shots that I wanted. The helicopter can only go 3,000 feet above the lava and within, I think, 2 miles radius. So, I was thinking I really need a long lens, and that's why I was using the 1 to 400 with a converter. And even from the boat, you don't know how safe it is to get close. I mean, we ended up getting really close, and they were great. But yeah, having the lens choice, having the freedom of that choice, really made a big difference for me on this trip.
That's cool. Now, Brett, you're moving around so quickly in a lot of spaces. The way you document a day or an experience. Do you have a ton of stuff with you, or do you pare it down?
So when I'm in New York City, I'll have my camera bag and have a bunch of different lenses. But when I'm traveling, this is something I've never heard any other person really doing. So I have my wide angle lens that I use for, I guess you said, vlogging. And then I have my RX 100 that I use for B-roll shots. So that's why I'm stoked that the Mark 6 just came out, because that goes to 200 millimeter. So I think before, the one I have, it only goes to 70. Mm-hmm. And I would use that for my B-roll shots, and no one could tell the difference, because I also have the 55 millimeter for my A6500. So it's usually I have my wide angle lens on me in my hand, and then I'll have the RX 100 for my B-roll shots.
You just keep it pared down, and it's easy to carry with you.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I'll have it in my pocket, so it's like, oh, this would look cool for a transition or B-roll shot. Whip that right out.
Nice. Yeah. Now, Paola, you have to move quickly and make a lot of fast choices on the street, because it's there and then it's not. Mm-hmm. Do you carry a big bag of options with you, or do you kind of keep it
Well,
small?
usually when I travel, I have my backpack with all the lenses that, you know, my favorites. Like they say 5 of my favorite lenses. But every time I'm going to go out and about and shoot, I always keep 2 lenses. So I always have, let's say, my 24-70 2.8. That's pretty much my go-to, you know, when I don't want to be switching lenses. Or I have my 85 1.8, which is my favorite lens at the moment. That's my baby. So, you know, I don't want to be carrying my backpack because I want to try to be discreet. But those are my 2 main lenses that I always walk around with.
Nice. Now, Garrett, does someone carry your stuff?
Not yet.
You should see his backpack. It's like a rock.
Very serious backpack.
It's like a caddy just for his camera gear.
No, it's just, again, like I use all my lenses. So anybody that travels with me knows that like whatever gear I have is used. So it's nothing that just goes unused, like, oh, I'm gonna take it just in case. So I'll use each lens that I carry with me in certain different scenarios and pull up different types of depth of field every scene, because I like to have variety, and sometimes it's used in different areas, sometimes it's not. So and then I go through phases where I'll use a certain lens for several months, then I won't use it anymore. So I'll sell it and get something else, and like really, you know, make myself versatile in that, and like the focal lengths. But yeah, it's all super heavy, I feel like, and it's just like no way around it. But yeah, with like your laptop and hard drives and all that stuff, I mean, it's just a huge brick. But I wish I could travel just with my phone still. So yeah, I do miss those days. But again, every thing that's in my backpack I use. So it's a necessity for me. And there's not a single time that I've like forgotten a lens, because I know when I do, it'll be like, man, I wish I had that with me. Like that's all I would use right now if I had it. So I just don't ever put myself in that situation. I just bring everything I have with me, and it works out. I mean, it's worth carrying the weight. So
that's interesting. Well, we get a lot of questions at B&H from folks that are filmmakers that are trying to transition or add still photography to their work, or still photographers that are, you know, wanting to branch out and do moving image types of stories. So this next question kind of is aimed at that. As an aspiring filmmaker, I personally would like to know, what kind of videos will you be using this camera for, the A7 III? Would you recommend it for shooting on set, or is it more for natural shots like time lapses? I have a Sony A6300 and love it for video. So maybe we could address that. Like, as an aspiring filmmaker, what type of stuff can you do with an A7 III? Is it a field camera? Is it a set camera? What do you think?
What I liked about it, for the day that I used it, it was so versatile, where you could do pretty much anything with it. Where it's, like I said, it's, you know, it's a professional camera, but it's still not that big. It depends on the lens that you have. You know, I had the G Master, which is, you know, relatively large, but for the most part, it was still easy to get around New York City, running around. Like I was on like a bike and a skateboard, like still had it in my hand. So anything that requires you with traveling, I still think it's great for that. And also, yeah, on set, it's phenomenal.
What do you think, Garrett, for you?
Same. I would think, yeah, it could be used either way. I think it's much more than just a set camera, because yeah, you can run and gun with it, just like the R3 or just like the S2. But to me, because you can take photo and video on it, it's way more versatile. Like the S2, it's always either on a Ronin or tripod or like handheld stuff. But that's where a lot of my video will come from, like the 7 III and things like that. You can just hold it and then flip over and take, you know, photos real quick. So
are you having a good experience with the battery life? I know it's one thing that slows folks down, like in the field with a lot of mirrorless cameras, but how's the battery treating you?
It's way better. Yeah, I'd say it's like triple the amount of life that I get out of, you know, like versus the R2 and things like that, or even the S2. It's tough because when you're doing video, it just eats it up so quick. Yeah. Especially doing photo and video, it just like eats it up so fast. Or anything live view, like for vlogging, it would just eat it up. So I can't imagine, for sure.
My camera's always set to live view, and I find that really hard on the batteries. But the battery life on the R3 and the 7 III is really good. Like I'm hard pressed to go through an entire battery in one day of shooting.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it goes a long ways with me.
That's really cool.
And the dual memory card too. It's like a great added bonus to that, you know?
Why is that important? Because some people see that and they're like, why?
Well, I mean,
why do I need
I shoot so much. Like, So having that backup, like maybe one day I go out and I take 5,000 photos. It happens. It's crazy.
5,000 photos?
Yeah. If I have a good day, then yeah.
Man, that's awesome.
But I'm not saying they're all good. Come on. But I'm saying it can happen, and I can actually be okay because I have another memory card on the camera.
It's ready to go.
Yeah, it goes both with me. So the battery and the memory card, because I shoot a lot of 120.
Yes.
So even on my A6500, I would always have the problem with having to have like 3 batteries on me. But now with this, I shot all day, and I think it was still at 50%. And I was like mind blown when I checked. I'm like, wait, there's still battery in this? Like it was so noticeable. I didn't think it would be, but like could easily notice that it was like maybe triple of my other camera.
No, that's super cool. That's awesome. All right, so there's a lot of little features I think that pop up that if you need them, you're like, oh yeah, that's amazing. Like the battery, I think is one that was a big surprise for me. But I want to talk just a little bit about the eye focus. Any portraitists in here shooting people that use the eye focus? No,
I used it a little bit. I got to notice it like when I was doing B-roll. I was like, wow, like even at zoomed in, it was able to get people's face recognition and their eye recognition so well, and I've never had a camera that could do that. It's
those little things. Like, are any little features that are hidden for you, Rachel, that you like to use?
So one that is not readily apparent is there's a function called brightness monitoring, and I use this for night sky photography. So basically, what you do is you use one of your custom settings buttons and you set it to brightness monitoring, and that essentially makes the LCD screen look like a video. And so when I was shooting the Milky Way over the lava, I was able to turn on brightness monitoring and see sort of in real time with just a little bit of a delay or a little bit of a lag as if I was running a video. And that allowed me to compose my image without having to take a test shot and then look at it and then adjust and then take another test shot and adjust. So that was a really helpful feature. And it's new on the Sony a7 III and the a7R III, both have them.
Why is that feature so important for time? Because I know a lot of folks that maybe are just starting out in astrophotography or shooting these types of landscapes. Why is time so critical there?
Well, because the sky is always changing. I mean, that Milky Way only stays in a certain position for so long. You might have a narrow window with the moon or with clouds moving in, or in my case, up on that crater, up on top of the mountain looking over the crater, it was really cold. Like, it was so bitter. And I'm a Canadian, and I'm in Hawaii, freezing. So, I mean, you want to be able to move efficiently, and that was one of those things that helped me.
Awesome. All right, now, Paula and Brett, you also have gotten to play around with the RX100VI. Okay, so
such a good camera.
This is it's a compact, super portable camera. Tell us a little bit about it, Paula. How are you using it on the street?
Like sometimes I'm walking and I forget my camera at home. Like using that camera made me realize that that can be my go-to camera. Sometimes when I don't have my camera, I can just be shooting with that one. So it was so different shooting with that camera because I'm usually carrying my big camera around, the weight, sometimes you get tired, but it was so powerful and the photos are so sharp. I was so impressed. And the new lens is a game changer. Come on, you don't even have to worry about switching lenses. And who doesn't want that?
It's long, right? Like,
yeah.
How far does it go?
200.
200 millimeter.
Yep.
Yeah. How's that helping you out?
Yeah, for the B-roll stuff, it's been insane. And also, what's been so great about the camera for me is now that they add, I think it's a 4-point stabilization. So before, on the old versions, when you were walking and vlogging and filming yourself or whatever you're filming and walking, it'd be a little shaky. But now it's like perfect, where you can't even it's almost like you're on like a stabilizer. So that's been like game changer, especially as someone who vlogs. But my other favorite thing about it has been the 200 millimeter, I think, for sure. Just to like be able to shoot across, I was at Washington Square Park shooting within, like be able to shoot across the fountain and get someone like crystal clear was just amazing.
And they added the touchscreen too. So I use that a lot for focusing. Like if I'm setting up a scene, I just tap the screen and it focus on specific, whatever I want it to be. So that was a huge thing for me.
And does it fit well? Do the files fit in well? Like let's say you're shooting stuff with the A7 III. Would you feel comfortable like doing a delivery for a client out of both cameras? I can see where it might be helpful having the flexibility of the two. Do they blend well in a deliverable?
Video, yes, definitely. Like I said, that is what I do. I use the RX100 for B-roll usually, and no one has ever even like noticed and be like, oh, what do you film that with? Like, but that is a point and shoot camera. So yeah, for video, I'd say so. What do you say for
Photos, I don't know. I mean, I still see that my Sony a7 III is my primary camera. If I'm dealing with clients, I want to deliver the best and most, the best files possible.
Sure.
But I would trust that camera to help me out, in the job. Like when my camera fails, hopefully it doesn't happen. But yeah.
Cool. We got a big question coming in from social, and I want to hear from all of you on this. One of the challenges, I think, with travel is it costs money. Have you guys heard about this? It's like it's a little
No.
expensive to
Really?
go places. This is what I hear. So our question comes in, how does one find funding for a project where you get to travel the world for 1+ years? How do you find funding for your projects? Like, Garrett, maybe we'll start with you on this one.
Myself, or a lot of these trips, like it's self-funded with buddies that are either saving money or money from other projects that we've completed that you just want to go and make it happen. You just make it happen. Like a lot of times, certain trips will line up and things like that, or you're invited on a trip and those things are paid for to create content for them in exchange for the travel and then, compensation on top of that. But a lot of these trips, if you want to go, you just go yourself. And if there's a will, there's a way type thing. If you want to pitch to different clients and certain content that you're going to create for them, you can learn how to sell your ideas to them, create a deck for them that they can understand why you're going, what your purpose is, what story you want to tell, and they're able to, compensate budget for that. And so a lot of times you can mix and match and be able to take care of the cost. But for the most part, I've paid for so many trips that just you want to have those memories and that time, so you just make it happen on your own.
Now, Rachel, you're kind of in a position where uniquely you have education as a very large part of your image making and art making process. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can talk about that in relation to funding and all the places that you find yourself going.
Okay. So sometimes if I know I'm going to be in an area for a little while, I'll advertise that I'm going to be available for private lessons, and I'll work while I'm away, and that helps to offset some of the costs of trips. I also plan trips with other people, and cost sharing helps a lot as well, especially hotel rooms, which are a big part of your travel expenses. Yeah.
That's cool. Paola?
Well, I feel like my work tends to attract a lot of tourism boards.
Oh, okay.
So that's always good because that means free pretty much everything, but then you have to work hard while you're there. Like most people think that you're traveling, but you're not working. And they don't see what's behind that, the closed doors. It's a lot of work, hardly any sleep, staying up until 2 a.m. editing because you have to deliver photos. So it's a lot of work, but yeah, tourism boards it's like the best way to go.
Okay, awesome. For YouTube?
Yeah, for YouTube, it's a little bit different. So I agree with what Garrett was saying, where it's self-funded. But I'd say in my shoes, you have to do that at first and build a portfolio. Like I went to Southeast Asia a while back, and I created a series of like 10 videos out there, and they amounted to over like 600, 700,000 views in total. And then I pitched that to other companies and said, hey, I want to do a travel series here. How would you like to get involved in this? So now whenever I have an idea for a trip, I usually just like somehow make a contact or contacts that I already have with companies and brands and get them to fund it. I leave for Canada this weekend and then go to Africa, to Morocco, and then Turkey. And that's all just from a brand that I've even worked with before, and just making them happy and then showing them results. And now I pitched them this idea, like, let's do it.
Do you need an assistant?
Let's do this.
Travel and lifestyle photography in recent years, I think, is taken off in terms of the volume of things that are made. So I know you all are shooting, like you're saying, Paul, you're shooting a lot and delivering a lot. With that, how do you stay inspired? Maybe what are some tips that you would have with somebody that's making a large volume of images and they need to stay inspired? Rachel, maybe we can start with you on that.
Staying inspired. I have no shortage of inspiration. I think I get my inspiration from just traveling and being in a place. So I've never really struggled with that aspect of it. Yeah.
Any tips you give to somebody?
I agree with her where it's like, it's definitely not a shortage of inspiration. It's, once you're going, it's just like you're so excited and like maybe mixing it up. Like I've even switched even the listening from, I remember switching like tripods and gorilla pods, like got me so excited to like shoot differently now.
So switch up the gear. Can
Switch
keep
up
your
gear
brain.
even a little bit, like maybe a new lens or trade a lens, and like the little thing like that can get you so excited to like, oh, I can't wait to use this or like do this new effect or learn something new. So I think like with photography and moving images, there's so many ways to mix it up that keeps it exciting.
I think that's like a huge part of photography is that there's always something to learn. So, you know, even as a landscape photographer, I'm constantly learning something new, you know, if it's incorporating portraits or environmental portraiture into what I'm doing, or there's always different little challenges. So I think that's probably why I never feel a lack of inspiration, is that there's so many different ways that photography can challenge me.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
For
Okay.
me,
Oh, sorry, Paul.
For me, I switch lenses. Like that helps me out a lot. Sometimes I'm like blocked and I'm not seeing things the way that I should be seeing. So I switch lenses, and that gives me a whole new perspective, and I start getting more excited, and then that's when things just start to work again.
That's nice. Garrett, for advice to somebody
Sure.
that might need it to stay
So,
inspired.
Really, I mean, you know, I guess I'd say for the outdoors, like people that are shooting the outdoors and things like that, there's so many people and places that have been photographed a billion times over, and it's the same composition, it's the same thing. Everybody wants that one shot type deal. And granted, like those shots are good to have, but it's like, okay, myself as Garrett, how can I shoot this differently? Also, how can I one up myself in that thought? Like, okay, do I bring this into motion? Is this now a stop motion thing? Do I now play with like different camera techniques to create some type of animation? Do I turn a photo into a video? Stuff like that is what I always think about, putting that design process into photography and just changing it completely. Because for me, it's about like entertaining myself and, you know, yeah, having my own spin on those things. So I think that you can pull inspiration from the people you're with, their aesthetic, how they shoot, how they stylize things, how they edit, and then also just your perspective. You know, viewing things different. You're just so, I'd say, niche in the fact that people want to like instantly go to a shot that they've seen and take it for themselves and like, oh, that's my photo. It is, but like at some point, like how do you make that different for yourself, you know, and how is that your own shot? Like there's always gonna be different light, there's always gonna be different environmental scenarios, but it, you know, when it comes down to it, you know, how can you create something that's, you know, unique to yourself? And to me, that's like exactly why I shoot, is to make something that's just different, you know, game changer.
That's awesome.
Can I add one more thing?
Please.
To get inspired, some advice. Listen to more B&H live streams, because I'm so inspired right now. Like she was showing me, Rachel was showing me all of her night photography. I'm like, all right, I need to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to the Sahara Desert. Like, so even now I'm like, I'm inspired to learn something new. So I think even me consuming the content is inspiring too, and seeing other people, how Paula saw other people being able to travel, making a living from like their photos. So I think consuming the content, you can transpire that and be like, I can do that too.
Yeah, I always feel like I'm making good things when I'm looking at good things.
Yeah, shooting with others is really important, because you're always going to learn something new, even if it's just a different perspective. And I think that is a good way to be inspired.
Yeah, and surround with people that are constantly going to push you.
Yes.
That's so important. You want people who are going to be like, you got this. They're always going to have your back.
They'll ground you real.
I got your back.
They ground you really quick when you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I thought this shot was pretty sick, and you see someone else's perspective. You're like, I wasn't even looking over there. You know, like that's super good.
That's awesome. Well, we have a ton of awesome questions that are coming in. Remember, you can get in on this conversation. If you have questions for the panel, please tweet them at us. Use the hashtag BHPhotoLive. All right, this just came in here. Could the panel discuss some of the best options for lenses or accessories for the A7 III best suited for travel photography? So, yeah, Paola, maybe we'll start with you. Like, if you just had the A7 III, you could maybe slap one lens or a couple of accessories on it. What would you?
I
take
would
with you?
do an 85 1.8, which I mentioned before. That's my favorite lens. It's like I think under $600. I'm not sure how much is that. It's like, and then I would do maybe a 55 1.8. That's also a lens that I use a lot. It's like very compact, lightweight, and it's super sharp. So if you have the money, you can do those. Start with those two, 55, 85.
Nice. Brett, what would you?
Yeah, for me, I mean, it depends. If it's like a birthday gift from someone, I'm going to get that G Master that you guys let me use, the 16 to 35, because I fell in love with that thing. Yeah, so I mean, if I had a choice, I would just get that lens for what I do with, you know, YouTube and vlogging and everything. Like, because the 35 is still great, but the 16 on it, like, it just looks so crispy. So.
I think that my favorite lens, just all purpose, is the 24-70 G Master. It's really versatile because you can use it for landscape, you can use it for night photography. It's really sharp. It's a 2.8. And it's also got beautiful bokeh. So if you want to use it casually and you were just going to carry one lens around with you, that'd be the one I start with.
Garrett, what do you think?
So I think it's all relevant to like what you are traveling for.
Sure.
You know, like Paula, she wants depth of field and like that compression, so she's going to want to have that, you know, and Rachel wants, you know, the wide angle. And so it's just, it depends what you're going for. But I would say if you're going to be stuck with one lens the rest of your life, no matter what camera it would have to be a 35 millimeter, because it's just like the standard for film, and like it's wide enough to capture a scene. It's like close enough to get intimate, but I would say like a 35 1.4 so you can get depth of field. And yeah, it's just all around. Like I think anybody could be comfortable in that focal length, and it will challenge you to get closer or get further away. But yeah, that's what I would choose if I was stuck with one thing, and I'd be completely happy with that.
These are all great recommendations. Yeah. So I got a shop question that just came through. Maybe Garrett, we'll start with you on this one here. What is the ratio of the planned shot list versus the candid in your typical work? So I guess it's sort of how much do you plan on paper versus like how much you just want to figure out in the space?
Sure. I think it's once you get there, right? Sometimes your plans just go out the window when the weather's different or just doesn't line up or it's way too crowded or something like that. But I would say there's only a few things that I plan out for the most part, but then, you know, compositional purposes, I love to freestyle and get those organic moments of people in their element to what they're doing. And I think that's just much more of a story when everything comes just organic, because everything planned is just stereotypical and it's easy to do, but there's no emotion in that really, because it's not natural. So I think when you're catching people in their elements, to where it's like animals or just people or cars, whatever it is, it's so cool. And that's why I love Paola's work, is that it's just right there at that moment in time. It can't be replicated. It can't be it's right then. And so to me, I think that's super special, because you can plan a little bit, but you don't know what you're going to get until you hit that shutter. So I would say it's like 50-50 for me.
Let's jump over to you, Paola. How do you feel about it approaching street? Is there like a shot list in mind, and then you get there? What's your ratio?
Every day that I'm out there, I don't plan anything. I just go because I know something new is going to happen immediately. There's so many stories out there, so there's always something new happening, you know. So I try to not to plan anything and just go with the flow and just like embrace the moment, you know, just like see things and moments as they unfold. And that's the beauty of street photography.
Rachel, for you?
I think that there's some planning that you can do in landscape, and there's ideas that I have that depend on certain conditions aligning. And, you know, you might have an idea for a shot, but it depends on the aurora or, you know, certain ice conditions or something like that. So I have things in mind that really it's just a game of patience, where I have to wait for those conditions to happen before I can pull that shot off. So I do have ideas for shots.
Okay. How did you wait out the volcano? Like, or have you waited something out and then it just didn't happen? How do you deal with that?
I wait stuff out all the time that doesn't materialize. The aurora being the best example. The volcano was totally different, just in that we didn't have great access. You know, there was restrictions for safety reasons as to how close you can get. So I mean, you can have ideas for shots, but can't pull the trigger on those because you just can't get that close. So you have to work with what you have.
Agreed.
Brett, how does the disappointment of waiting it out work in your life?
Yeah, I've had that happen a few times. Even yesterday, I woke up at 5 in the morning to get sunrise at the Brooklyn Bridge. This is actually a good story, because luckily it came out amazing, got a lot of good photos and video, but there's been so many times where we'll wake up at crack of dawn, try and get some shots, and then there's no sunrise. Or I'll even like go in plan a helicopter ride, and then it's like the worst day to possibly go in a helicopter, and you spend all that money. So you just have to know that that's Mother Nature and it happens. And I'm sure that's happened to all of us.
Oh yeah, it's just a game of waiting. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Then you shake it off and you go try again.
Try again. That's it, yeah.
I like that. All right, another question coming through here. In your careers, did you find it more helpful to grow your client base by having a niche, or being broad-based in your travel photography? And maybe we'll start with you, Paola. Start niche or more broad?
I would have to say niche. You know, once you go through life and you know who you are and what you want people to see and know you by, I think that's when everything changes. You know, that's why every time I put out work out there, I want it's because I love it. You know, and I want people to see that too, because that means that they're seeing who I am, how I see the world. So I think that's very important when you're going through life like this. Just put out work that you love, and I think people will learn to appreciate that too.
Nice. Garrett, for you?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think I'm niche for your style, right, and like how you perceive the things that you're shooting, and then it's good to be well-rounded and try to, you know, try everything, but there are going to be certain things that you're exceptionally good at more than others, and it's good to always keep those strong and then try to strengthen the ones that are not as good. But I would say, yeah, you shoot what you love and love to shoot, and you know, the people that want to hire you know your strengths and they want you for that. Okay. And so it's a nice like asset to have. You're like, they want me for me, I'm going to do my thing, and that's when the results come through, you know.
How about for you, Brett?
For me, I think it's totally niche. Like Paul was saying, like once you know yourself and know what your brand is, then other companies and brands know what they're working with. So for me, like being a travel adventure YouTuber and photographer and Instagrammer from New York City, there's not many other people like that. There's really not many New York City YouTubers in general. So to be a male that does that, I think that's why, you know, a lot of my branded work is usually inbound. And I'll ask them like how they found me, like, oh, like, yeah, like you're one of the only, you know, lifestyle travel people based in the city. So I think when you have your niche, and if it's not too saturated, that's how you get a lot of the branded work.
How about you, Rachel?
Yeah, I would have to agree with the others that niche is knowing what you love and being able to share that with the world. That's what draws people to you.
I love it. All right, so we have another question here came through. Oh, this is an interesting one. I'm considering a platform switch and would like to know from the panel, what are the main compelling reasons for switching from DSLR to mirrorless, and is it advantageous in travel photography? Brett, you want to start this one off?
Yeah, like I said, I still love the A6500, especially for travel, just because it's so light. And on that, I have the 10 to 18 millimeter. Probably my favorite lens for that, just because it's so light. Like that camera literally can just fit in like my coat pocket, that whole entire camera setup. So I'd say, and the image quality is amazing too. There's not too much of a difference that I can tell from not being too technical with cameras. I can't tell a difference even between like some of the DSLR cameras. So I'm curious to hear your guys' perspectives.
So being an educator, I work with a lot of cameras, and I had a client recently switch to Sony because she had injured her shoulder and she really could not pack the weight of her other camera. Her shoulder injury required surgery. So she went full Sony, all the lenses, and she could go back to doing what she loved and what she was doing before, because of the weight difference. Often my clients will comment on how small my bag is. You know, if I'm going to a location that I know exactly what lens I'm going to bring, and my camera bag for hiking is quite small, and that in and of itself has actually inspired people to switch to the mirrorless system as well. So I think the weight of them makes a really big difference. And the image quality, I mean, you just, there's no comparison. They have beautiful image quality.
For you, Garrett?
I would say, I mean, the weight, of course, even though my bag weighs a ton, it's just like, I would say it depends what you're wanting to shoot. So some people will argue it's like, oh, I just do photo. Well, there's a lot of cameras that do photo, right? But I switched because I wanted to do photo and video, and for video purposes was just so much more advanced with Sony. It just made sense for me. I didn't want to have one video camera, one photo. And so I think that it was huge to do both of those, and also the electronic viewfinder for me. When it's really bright outside, to be able to just view through and not have to worry like about glaring on the screen when you can't really see. So I think that was big. In the low light situations, I think mirrorless are always going to be better in that sense. So to me, it was just these little factors that I checked off. That's been great. And then image quality as well. So it's just super sharp. So
I agree with them. I do.
Ditto.
They said what I was thinking.
Does the size make a difference though for street photography? You know,
to me, it doesn't.
It doesn't
I
make
mean,
a
it
difference.
doesn't matter what I'm shooting with. It's like you have to be comfortable with your gear, you know. And it doesn't matter if I'm carrying the 70 to 100. I still feel comfortable, and that's very important to me. So to me, size does not matter. Oops.
That's awesome. So I just want to just kind of quickly go around here. You know, for someone that may be starting out in travel or lifestyle photography, somebody that's interested in the genre, maybe we could each impart a tip for them along the way. Maybe Paula, we'll start with you and work our way down.
That's it. Just enjoy every second of it. Don't give up on your dreams. You know, just work hard, love what you do, and like just enjoy the journey. Some people are, you know, just you have to be positive and have an open heart to life experiences because there's so many beautiful things happening out there, and I think you just have to embrace it, embrace life, and whatever comes your way.
Love that.
Well said. Well said.
Follow that one up, Brett. Follow that
Yeah.
one.
My advice is you are who you hang out with. So if you want to be a street photographer or travel photographer, try and find other ones and get into that and, you know, learn everything that they know. Because then, like I said, you are who you hang out with. So hang out with some great people who are amazing photographers.
Cool. You all want to hang out after this? Is that cool? All right. Rachel.
I agree with both of you, and I would say in addition to those points, to take your time and to actually really enjoy and experience a place. I find that my best work comes when I've visited a place more than once, and that allows me to get creative with it or engage with it in a different way, because sometimes it can be really overwhelming when you just show up and there's like a volcano exploding and, you know, there's things happening and you can get great shots, but to be able to revisit, to go another time, or to be able to just take your time in the moment makes a really big difference in what you can produce.
Love that. Garrett?
So in addition to all that, I can't say it enough, but to take pride in the work that you're creating and like know that it's your craft and people are watching and they see that and like be an example for those. Like shoot because you love it. Don't shoot for social media. Don't shoot to please everybody else. Like do it because you want to be doing it, because you could do anything. And it's like, if you're choosing this and like go full force in it and love every bit of it. I think one thing that's been important for me to learn has been to be present in those moments wherever I go. Because usually as soon as you get off the plane or in the car, everybody's strapping up, everybody's getting ready to shoot. And it's so hard to just stop and breathe, take in the moment, enjoy those times too. Because I've been on trips where it's a blur, because you get all the footage and all the photos and you remember it that way, which you're like, man, it's kind of hard to remember the trip because we were so neck deep in work that I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. So I think it's super important to take those moments, pull back, take those, you know, that time in and just enjoy the people you're with, what you're doing, and like feel blessed that this is the life, you know, that you're living and like the places that you go.
That's super cool. Super cool. Well, it's come to that time of our show where we're going to give away some cool stuff. You guys want to see some cool photography?
Yeah.
All right. So one of our winners, drum roll please. All right. Coming in from our A7 III photo contest, winner number 1 is Ross Armstrong.
Yeah, Ross.
Oh, go Ross.
Way to
That's a
go.
great shot. We have Nicholas Bayer. That's a nice slow exposure there. Robert Schulman.
Yeah, Robert.
Whoa. Where is that?
That looks like Mauna Kea.
We've got Dom Smith.
Awesome.
Nice shot. Good
Yeah,
job,
Dom.
Dom. All right, now, you all ready for the grand prize winner here?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is for the winner of a brand new Sony A7 III with a 28 to 70 millimeter lens, and the winner is Jay Navikas.
Yeah, Jay.
Go Jay! Congratulations.
I was hoping it was me, but enjoy it, Jay.
That's not how you spell my name.
Well, that's so awesome. Well, we want to thank everybody that's been watching the stream at home for checking us out here on the B&H photo live stream looking at travel and lifestyle photography. I want to thank the panel. Anything else you guys would want to throw in? Any social that we need to plug? How do we find you all?
Follow us.
How do we follow you? Paula, how do we find you?
Instagram/Monares_.
YouTube.com/Brett Conti.
On Instagram, Rachel_Jones_Ross. And I have a website, Astralis Photography.
Just short stash. Just Yeah, just short sash. You'll find it somehow. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. This concludes our live stream talking about lifestyle and travel photography featuring the Sony A7 III. I'm photographer David Flores. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.